Practice Champions information sharing webinar this afternoon. I am one of the managers on the implementation science team, and as I had said, I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. And I'd also like to introduce you to Andrea Stubbs, and she is the project lead of the Best Practice Champions program, and she'll also be on the line. So if you have any technical questions in relation to today's webinar, please just shoot her a note in the chat box. So just as a brief background, these monthly webinars is a means of supporting yourselves as best practice champions in your guideline implementation journey. And so our speakers and the speakers that we have recruited are those who are actively involved in BPG implementation and sustainability. So today we have the pleasure of two presenters from Markhaven Home for Seniors presentation on best practice guideline implementation successes in a long-term care home. And so before I introduce today's presenters, I just want to keep some housekeeping items in mind. First, we do have a Q&A session about 10-15 minutes as part of this webinar, so we want it to be interactive and engaging. So as you listen to the two presenters, please jot down any questions that you may have or write them in the chat box so that we can bring them up during the Q&A. And our presentation is going to be about 20 and 25 minutes, and our webinar is going to be 45 minutes in total. And when you do type in any of your comments or questions to the presenters or myself, if you please in your chat box indicate all panelists and attendees, then everyone will be able to see these questions. Andrea, she is going to be recording these presentations, so they can be archived and will be available for future viewing for those of you who know individuals who had wanted to attend today but are not able to. It will be available on the RNAO website. Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce you to your presenters for today. First, we have Kevin McKay, and he is the Director of Care at Markhaven Home for Seniors. And his leadership and long-term care experience have contributed greatly to Markhaven's BPSO pre-designate journey. And then we have Sarah Harrylal, and she's an RPN and is the ROI coordinator at Markhaven Home for Seniors. And she became the BPSO Liaison in 2018 and has successfully completed the second year. So congratulations, Sarah and team, and is going into the final year to in terms of Markhaven's pre-designate journey. So when I say BPSO, for those who are not familiar, it stands for Best Practice Spotlight Organization. And they consist of healthcare as well as academic organizations who are selected by RNAO through an application process to implement and evaluate RNAO's best practice guidelines. And this is some of what Sarah and Kevin are going to be talking about today. And so it's a dynamic supportive partnership with a focus on making positive impact on patient care using the guidelines, so essentially using evidence-based practice. And RNAO provides organizations who have agreed to this formal agreement and a participation in the program, support and with evaluation as well as implementation over a 3-year period. So now I'd like to turn the floor to Kevin and Sarah, and I'm just going to pass the control to you, Sarah, sure. And then you'll be able to skip over to the next slide.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi everyone, and thank you all for joining us. We'll be talking about our successes on the BPG implementation in our homes today. Sorry, Andrea, it's not, the arrow isn't coming up anymore. It's very faint.
I'll try again to give it to you, okay, Sarah?
Sure.
Okay, so let me just.
Like
press right there.
That's right. There we go. Okay, I see it now.
Perfect.
All right. There we go. Again, so hi everyone. Thank you again for joining us. We're going to talk about Markhaven's BPG implementation and the successes at our home. So here's a little history about Markhaven. We're a 96-bed home, non-for-profit, long-term care, and we're located in Markham. We've been serving the community for more than 50 years. We are committed to the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of our residents with the support of our caring staff, volunteers, and family. In 2007, we entered a 3-year partnership with RNAO as an LTC Best Practice Spotlight Organization pre-designate to implement 3 recommendations from person-family-centered care, prevention of falls and falls injury in older adults, and finally, promoting continence using prompted voiding. And we already been introduced. So our objective is, so the webinar will focus on the practice improvements made in the long-term care through the implementation of the recommendations that I just mentioned. The presentation will review the creative ideas developed and adopted by Markhaven, implementation hurdles, and how these were overcome with the help of the internal best practice champions. So as part of our BPSO journey, Markhaven focuses on the best practice for these 3 BPGs. Evidence-based recommendations from the BPGs were selected and gathered data to measure the successes of the implementation through RNAO Enquire. The Falls BPG was updated, and the recommendations selected from the former Falls BPG were well matched with the new BPG as well. So the LTC Best Practice Toolkit has been included in the best practice resources. These include the BPG's assessment tool and implementation toolkit. So this is our first BPG. I'll be speaking about patient family-centered care, and then Kevin will take over. So for the patient family-centered care, these were the recommendations that we selected. So we said to establish a therapeutic relationship with the person using verbal and nonverbal communication, to build a partnership with them in a trusting and respectful way. The next one we chose was to empower relationships with the person, the residents, to promote the person's proactive and meaningful engagement. And the last one was to listen and seek insight into the whole person to gain a better understanding of the meaning of health and to the person and learn their preferences for care. So here are some of our accomplishments for person-family-centered care. We have here this is a mini bio as well as the Getting to Know Me program. So what we do is on admission with all of our new residents, we give them a handout it's a questionnaire that we ask them to fill out just so we can gain a little more knowledge about who they are and what they were like when they were younger, what they did, where they traveled, a little bit about their family. So in the middle we have the biography, and on the ends with the pictures, these are some of the family members that gave us consent that we could use it as an example of what the boards would look like. So on the next slide, so this is the Getting to Know Me questionnaire. So on admission, as well as the current residents, we give them these. If the residents are cognitive enough, we get them to help us with that, and we'll also ask the family members. And on the right, we had one of our lovely previous RN student. Her name was Ashley. She created this board for the lovely couple that live at our home. It was a really very successful implementation for this, and we continue to do so for the rest of the residents. So our goal is to eventually have all residents in the home to have one of either the boards or the mini bios. And here we go. And next we have the horticultural program. So it's a Markhaven Memory Garden. What this does is the resident experiences horticultural therapy mostly during the winter months as well as the summer months. Markhaven, we introduced this in February of 2018. So we have here, you can see it, a rolling cart. So it's a traveling garden cart. So it houses beautiful plants and flowers for the residents to take care of. It consists of watering the plants, pruning, and reminiscing about times when they used to do these activities. It's been a wonderful way to help the residents brighten up their day and spark positive memory. We have currently 69 residents who have participated in the program. And this is one of our lovely activation aides. Her name's Beverly, and she is she's also a champion, so she's doing amazing in this for the residents. Our next one we have is the doll therapy program. So this helps the resident who are diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's to help reduce their mood and behavioral symptoms and allow the residents to take care of, dolls, baby-like dolls. So it gives them a chance to be calm and really, reminisce about having children. And in the middle picture here, where there's the drawer and the picture behind there, that mural was actually painted by the great students of Markhaven High District High School. So we're really appreciative of that. We also have a TheraGlide rocking chair with locking safety features for our resident when they sit and rock the dolls. This program has been and continues to be a great success, and it has sustained and showed great improvement in our residents' reduction in agitation and mood. So these are some of the approaches that we do in order to engage the residents. So we have a sunroom, the nursery, that we actually have in the secured unit, the secured dementia unit. There's a sunroom that we just created not too long ago that have an entire nursery with the dolls and rocking chair, bassinets, strollers. So we engage the residents to come in there and find a doll that they may like, change the doll, and really engage. And this really helps the residents calm and nurturing. It brings out positive feelings for them. Next, these are some of the benefits that we have for the doll therapy for dementia residents. So calming effects, reduces wandering and agitation, improves communication, positive feelings, to reduce pain-related stress, as well as nurturing feelings. And here we have is a bar graph that we did, and this details the improvements of activity engagement from the baseline engagement, which is in the light green, and the implementation, which is the darker green, of the doll therapy for residents A, B, and C, and the implementation for the horticultural for residents D and E. The engagement scores can range from 0 to 3, with 3 being the highest score. Also note that these therapies are helpful to moderate to severe cognitive impairment residents, and is shown in the CPS scale. So as you can see, in every residence, their engagement has gone up, and it continues to do so with all the other residents that are being in this program and participating in it. With that, I will now give the reins to Kevin, and he will talk to you about falls and continence. Thank you very much.
Great. So for falls recommendations, the selected BPGs that we used were 1.1, assess falls risk after a fall. 2.0, which is into them having the interpersonal team implement multifactorial falls prevention interventions to prevent future falls. 2.2 was nurses in consultation with the healthcare team should conduct medication review on admission and periodically throughout the continuum of the client's care to prevent falls among older adults in healthcare settings. Clients taking multiple and known high-risk medications should be identified at higher risk for falls. And 2.5, all clients who have been assessed as high risk for falling receive education regarding their risk of falling. All right, so the next slide. The accomplishments of the falls prevention. So what we have really done, we've had pictures with interventions at the bedside. This is for our high-risk residents. It's really easy for our staff to be able to pinpoint and see what the interventions are. It keeps families informed of what's in the care plan so they're aware. We had the Red Socks program, which was implemented, and those are non-slip socks, which prevent the sorry, I think we're just going to have to skip back there. The Red Sox program, those are non-slip socks. They are identifiable. So when people come in the home, they can tell if a resident's high risk of falls for staff. They can also see if a resident's high risk for falls. And we also have a tracking of fall patterns, which I regularly, routinely will review all the falls in the building through our risk management. We've embedded our post-fall huddle in there, which is embedded with the Scott's Fall tool, which is a RNAO tool that we use. and we analyze all of the falls and try to find any factors which we can alter. We have the Falling Stars identifying program. So that is a quick tool which staff can go to a room and determine if a resident's high risk of falls based on a falling star schematic, which have 3 different colors. Will be in a future slide. And also falls brochures, which we had created by some of our students that we have available for families. So for the pictures in the rooms, these are some of the examples of pictures we have. So the red socks, we have non-slip strips, keeping walker by bedside, hip protectors, high-low beds, fall mats, bed alarms, chair alarms, and toileting routines. For the falling star system that we have, we've actually added this to our policy procedure. So the high risk is for red, and we equate this with the MORSE fall scale. So anyone above 51 would be high risk. Anyone moderate risk would be between 50 and 24. And low risk would be anyone less than 23. And we also have a Q-shift check. So we've summarized all of our high-risk residents in the building, and we've identified what the interventions are they have in place. We have a little bit of a legend to make it really easy to use. And we have nurses from agency that can come in and use this. We have PSWs that can look at this and see what the interventions are. But primarily our RPNs and RNs go around and check the interventions on the respective units, and they sign off to say that they've checked to make sure that the interventions are in place. The next slide, what we've also done, we've put the falls interventions for each resident in POC. We have our POC kiosks throughout the building. So what we have at the top of the screen on the POC screen, we have the interventions. We actually write them out for the staff. And we also have a checklist to say, are these things in place? And periodically we audit to see if they were in place. We speak to the staff that have noted that it wasn't in place and find out who possibly was following up with their interventions, and just do education. It's just to make sure everyone's on par with the program and understands what they're doing. And it's positive reinforcement. So that's for the falls. For continence and promoted continence prompted voiding, recommendations selected. 9.0, we did ensure adequate levels of fluid intake, which is 1500 to 2000 milliliters per day, and minimize the use of caffeinated and alcoholic beverages where possible. 10.0 was initiate an individualized prompted voiding schedule based on the client's toileting needs, and as determined by a 3-day voiding record. And 12.0, which is implement an educational program on prompted continence using prompted voiding. So the accomplishments for the continence, we've established the new 3-day voiding record on all new admissions for our residents. And also with any residents has a change in their status. We are able to analyze the pattern from the 3-day voiding, and we develop a toileting routine. We actually have made recently a quick reference form, very similar to the ones we do for falls, where we plot out based on before and after breakfast, before and after lunch, before and after dinner, and at HS and overnight. And we have a tick sheet of when residents need to be toileted. So any staff member can look at that in a second and determine when that resident needs to be toileted. And again, those are created based on our 3-day voiding routines. We also increase from 1,200 milliliters to 1,500 milliliters daily for fluids. Voiding routines developed for residents that still have some control of their bladder, so we'll put them on a restorative program and work with them for that. Resident room audits and continence subcommittee. So for tips, so implementing and sustaining BPGs are not always easy, but with a good team and great champions, we can successfully sustain the implementations of that work in our organization. Trial and error, try different ideas and suggestions. Good open communication with the champions is very important. And celebrating our successes. And spreading the word to the community and family members about the facility being chosen as a best practice spotlight pre-designate and what it entails. The roles of the best practice champions: attend knowledge exchange meetings, seminars, and webinars for BPSO. participate in committee meetings such as Falls and Continence, share suggestions and ideas on how to implement and sustain all BPGs, and ensure interventions are in place and up to date and follow care plans. So our resources we have listed for you to access. And does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Okay, well, that was an excellent presentation, Kevin and Sarah, and thank you so much for that. Perhaps I'll give you a few minutes to be able to think about some questions that you'd like to ask, but I'd just like to be able to acknowledge for, you know, the interventions and the engagement that is happening at Markhaven Home, and the way that you are really living out the mission and vision of your home in terms of providing that holistic care. So for the person and family centered care, I really love the creativity in terms of your personalized, you know, bio boards. I really like, you know, the concept of the garden, and if the, you know, residents can't go to the garden, you're bringing the garden to the residents. So I really love the pictures that you've shown. And the doll program and the therapy, I think, has been really impactful in terms of being able to calm residents. And so again, living out the philosophy of holistic care and attending to a resident's emotional, mental, as well as physical needs. And I really love the interdisciplinary engagement and the community engagement with regard to the, you know, the person and family centered care BPG and all the BPGs that you're implementing. And Kevin, I really wanted to point out the importance of the point of care prompts. And so you talk about the pictures of interventions, you talk about the reference forms when it comes to the continence, and that is both informative and prompting for the staff, as well as brings awareness as to what you're doing amongst the family and the residents. And then the fact that it's very important to also monitor and evaluate, and you obviously have in the BPGs that the both of you and your team have implemented, have had a lot of success with regard to your implementation. So congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Julie says, that was a great presentation and thanks for sharing. And Carrie says, wonderful work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And anyone have any questions? We have about, I would think we have about a good 15 minutes to ask any questions that you'd like to know with regard to any of the BPGs or any of their processes in terms of how they went about implementing some of the BPGs in a bit more detail, or perhaps some challenges they've encountered and how they were able to overcome that. So anything you'd like to know, the floor is open and you're welcome to write it in the chat box. Lots of great comments here. Was very informative. Carrie says, is asking, what was your biggest challenge with implementation?
Well, we had some changes in the facility. So, you know, we had some great leaders, and, you know, we've had some turnover. So it's just keeping everyone on board, really reinforcing, making sure the staff recognize the importance and see the value. You know, just kind of putting it back to a level of residents fall, for example, for the falls program. You know, when a resident falls, it has a huge impact on their life. You know, it's their comorbidity rates increase significantly when there's an injury like that. So putting it back to, this is life-saving measures we're putting out there for our residents, you know, bringing that human level into it, and just being able to show them that there's a reduction in the amount of falls that we've had. Doing pizza lunches help, reinforcing positive reinforcement of great behavior and good results. But really just keeping and finding time.
Yeah.
Finding time. It's important to be able to put time aside, and having great teamwork,
Yeah.
and great teammates to help out. Yeah. And a great liaison from the
RNAO.
Great job, Sarah. Oh, excellent. Yeah, those are, I mean, I think those are barriers that I think across organizations, whether long-term care, acute care, home care, the high turnover of staff, and then keeping the priority and the awareness of the importance of the work that you're doing. So definitely. Just curious about how many champions do you have?
Currently, so we have 12%. So we have about 14 champions right now. 14 and now we're in our final year. So I think overall we're about 16 champions.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, about 6. Yep.
And how do you go about keeping the champions consistently involved with the implementation?
Usually, so I try to inform them about any of the knowledge exchange meetings that we have, the monthly ones. Those who can make it, they're always they're there to be there to listen in on. If there's any conferences that they have or any presentations that, like they had the one at Delta, was it the Chelsea Hotel, and we sent a champion there. So whenever any of those things arise and there's an opportunity for any of our champions to go, I always let them know. And whoever, it's kind of like some of those only 2 people can go, so it'll be a first come first serve basis. So that kind of engages them. They're like, well, I want to go, I would really like to learn more about it. So that way, and then any of the successes that we do, we try to celebrate little successes as well as grand ones. So we're really looking forward to our final year, hopefully becoming a designate, and then we will throw a really big celebration for that one.
Oh, that sounds really good. I mean, you have great strategies there, and then the continued engagement and interest in their career development and professional development.
Yes.
So I think that's really important to be able to acknowledge and to give them opportunities to be able to develop that.
Right.
And let's see here. There was another question. Does anyone have any questions in the chat box for them? Anything that you would like to know? Sarah and Kevin, I was wondering in terms of you had really creative and very visually engaging strategies that you and your team have been able to come up. How did you go about, was it a brainstorm? Did you, seek the feedback of all of the staff in terms of throwing out any ideas there in terms of being able to come up with some of these really creative and innovative strategies?
Well, the RNAO Scott's Falls tool.
Okay.
The recommended Scott's Falls tool had visual prompts as one of the suggestions. And what we did is we sat down with the staff and brainstormed, how could we facilitate this? Where could we put these prompts? We started off with the prompts in POC. So I learned how to go in there and create my own prompts in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't having the effect that we wanted it to. So we just wanted to reinforce with the visual aspect on the walls, right above the beds. The staff felt that above the bed would be the best place to put it, right beside the falling stars. So we got better results with that. So just having as much, being able to reinforce, what the interventions are as much as possible, I find really hits it home with the staff. It makes it easy, and it has a positive effect.
Yeah, it obviously has, because it caught my attention, and even through the pictures, I was like, oh, that's really creative. And I suppose it also brings it out to the the residents and the families to also inquire and to learn more about the interventions that you're implementing. Okay, Amanda says the 3 BPGs mentioned at the beginning are they the ones typically focused on in long-term care?
Well, these were the ones that we chose for our homes. I know different homes, different organizations, they choose things that would be beneficial. They choose the BPGs that they find or will think that would be beneficial for their homes.
On that note, the Long-Term Care Home Act and also the regs do touch on the fact that we have to have an assessment post-fall, which is evidence-based. There has to be analysis. They were looking for intervention. So they kind of do complement exactly what the ministry is looking for and what our guidelines from the government actually puts out for us to make sure we're following. So it aligns with what we need to be doing anyway. So it's a great way to keep in line with the Long-Term Care Homes Act and the regulations.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I mean, obviously you're experienced change agent leads and champions, and one of the ways of being able to prioritize the BPGs or the recommendations is where does it align with other strategic priorities, and you obviously done a really great job in being able to do that, to be able to leverage that.
Yeah. And also some other homestays, some of the other BPGs that are mentioned, it can be pain, end of life, abuse, all of those could be BPGs that could be implemented in the home. So as if and when we become successful in our designate, we would add more implementations from the list that we have and implement those in our homes as well. So 3 is what we started with, and we will add as we go along.
You'll continue on.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and just to mention, I'm sure you've done a thorough gap analysis, not only to identify you've identified the issues and found the BPGs that align with addressing the issues that you find are priority in your home, but also doing a gap analysis to compare your current practices to that of the recommendations that are in each of the guidelines that you chose.
Yeah, we actually use the gap analysis as well, part of our policies, procedures, and again, to keep in line with the regs and the Long-Term Care Home Act, it's mandatory to have an annual review. So we actually use the Falls gap analysis as our annual tool. So we've embedded these processes into our day-to-day.
Yeah.
Compliance.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's a great documentation and tool and a way to be able to monitor your progress.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Julie Weir, she has a question. Does the home use an inter-RI assessment? I'm asking because I'm wondering if you have the clinical assessment protocols that inform care planning based on the assessment data.
So yes, we do use the inter-RI assessment, and we gather information from the residents that are scheduled for that time frame, and if they have whether they have a deterioration in continence, if they've had a fall, we do open assessments for those. So we'll have a change in continence, we'll open a new continence assessment. If they had a fall, we'll open a new fall. We'll have a post-fall huddle, and we'll also put it under the risk management. If there's a change in any of those, we do open a significant change the assessment to a significant change to ensure that we gather all the information, the correct data for the residents, to ensure that we are in compliance with, again, the ministry, and that we are following what the RI assessment is. Okay,
excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you were talking about, here's another question. Tracy, she says, do you work through the IPS as part of your annual review for falls and continence programs?
IPS?
So just correct me if I'm wrong, the IPS is I think the pharmacy provides us with a review of medication, inspection protocols. Okay. We do the inspection protocols. Again, we do use those and do our assessments as well too. We we try to do at least quarterly different IPs in the different areas, whether it's falls or continence, and we kind of embed that assessment. But we find the BPGs pretty much mirror everything you're going to find in the IPs as well too. So once you're covering the BPGs, it really does kind of get you prepared for any kind of IP inspection. But yeah, we do go through the IPs as well. And that's something that when we had a clinical nurse manager, I would delegate that to her to go and do an assessment. I do that as well too. And we share those findings with the staff.
Okay. So you're really thorough, like cross-checking and, making sure that there's alignment where there is. And yeah, great job. Okay. And you were saying that, your 1 year 1 year to go until I'm sure you're going to get your designation, and then you will continue on with implementation and implementing additional BPGs. With the ones that you have already implemented, and sustainability can be a challenge, what would you say have been successful strategies for sustaining the work that has been done so far, and sustaining or keep on improving on the outcomes that you've seen?
Well, I feel that good communication with the champions and everyone that's involved in the BPSO journey, ensuring that you have good relations with all those involved makes a huge difference in sustaining what we do have implemented. So, for example, the doll therapy program, the new nursery that we just ended up having in the secured unit, all of those, because of the ideas brought by the champions and having these meetings, they really, it blossomed into, we spoke it into existence, where, we can see what we spoke about and talked about and how we were going about this. So we have a lot of, especially for the patient family-centered care, we have an amazing activity and recreation department team. They're wonderful with that program. And the doll therapy, the garden therapy program, all of those, just communication, going in, checking in, how are you doing? Is there anything you'd like to suggest? Is there something we could possibly take out or try? And just going in and, here and there. And they feel that once you're open like that with the champions or anyone that wants to be involved, when the open communication, they're approachable to you and you're approachable to them. And I feel that alone has a big impact on how well our home sustains the implementations that we have. Also communicating with family members and volunteers about the programs and what we've done in our journey, that really, encourages the family members and the loved ones to get involved as well. So that's how we've continued to sustain these implementations and hopefully continue to do so in the future.
Oh, it sounds like you've found a genuine way to be able to continue to motivate all of the staff and feel that they are empowered and are change agents alongside the leadership team. So that's wonderful, and that feedback, that continued feedback, and the opportunity to be able to contribute to the programming that is done, I think is really important. So congratulations, because that's a hard culture to create that culture. But it sounds that you've done a really good job in terms of being able to create that open, mutually respectful culture of everyone has something to contribute, especially with person and family-centered care, where it really is, it impacts, every healthcare professional and everyone who steps in the hospital. So it's not nurses, not only nurses.
Yes, it's family, volunteers, anyone who comes in contact with all of the residents.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just wondering, with the person family-centered care guideline, do you also have involved, do you have a resident council, or how did you go about incorporating resident and family feedback?
So I can't say that I'm as involved with the resident council. We have a recreation aide that is involved with the person family-centered care. So we do go through, and again, she's very involved with that aspect, the person family-centered care. For the Falls and Continence, again, I haven't really interacted with them within this year. I have spoken at the resident council about what the BPG was and have gone through an explanation of what we're doing and what our goals are. But again, that's something that we can look at for the future for more involvement.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, the BPG implementation is a journey, right? So there's always, more that you can do, and a lot that I think you have a lot to celebrate, because you've done a fantastic job and have, you're halfway through or past halfway through your journey. And yes. So congratulations on the hard work. I mean, it's one thing to teach about the BPG implementation toolkit. It's another one to apply it, right?
Absolutely.
So it's individuals and teams and staff like yourselves that are doing the hard work. So I honor you for that.
Yes.
Okay, so I think, is there any other final questions from any of the attendees? Okay, so it looks like, oh, Suman says, great job with facilitating and getting conversation going. Thanks, Suman. She's a close colleague who used to work at RNAO, so she's fantastic. So thanks, Suman. It's really great to have you join us. I think we're going to bring it to a close. And Sarah and Kevin, again, thank you very much for sharing your BPSO and BPG implementation journey. There's also always lots to learn, and I love hearing from all of the organizations who are doing such great work to be able to improve patient outcomes wherever they are. So thank you and congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And just a quick, just one more thing. I think I'm moving forward in my slides. We do have our contact information.
Oh, okay.
So it's both of our names, our email and our phone numbers are there. So if anyone is wanting, there we go. Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All of our information is there. So if anyone that's listening in, if you want to have any questions or want to just call and find out anything, please feel free to do so. Oh,
that's great. And Vicki says thank you and keep up the great work. And for everyone that is on the line, the slides are also going to be posted on the RNAO website alongside with the recording. So you'll have access to Kevin and Sarah's email address. And thank you very much for, your willingness to open up your experiences and expertise and with regard to the work that you're doing. And also, if you please fill out the survey once you do leave this webinar, it's a way for us to continue to collect information as to topics that you want to hear about. And if you have any questions, please contact Indra Stubbs. She's the project lead of the Champions program, and you see her email is there as well. Otherwise, thank you very, very much, everyone, for joining, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Bye, Kevin.